So we've started recording and I'm going to share my screen as well, just to get the slides, make sure the slides are up and running. If with this training, anytime I do any training, if you can't see something or I need to make it bigger or any of those things, just let me know. Lou, you can't hear anything, says host muted me. I did I? Sorry, Lou, hang on. Wait, Lou. I was doing mute. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong buttons here. Sorry, everyone. Sorry for those watching the recording. Lou, can you hear me yet? No. Mute. I'll still unmute. Can you hear me now, Lou? Lou, can you hear me? No. I can hear someone. That's Lou's house. We can hear you. Sorry, everyone. Just want to try and resolve this technical problem. And for those that you are watching the recording, Lou, maybe drop out and drop back in again. She can't hear me. Maybe if she jumps off and again, it can help. That's what I was thinking too, Crystal. We maybe jump off and then on again. I'm going to keep going, unfortunately. Yeah, we can hear your background noise, Lou. Sorry, everyone. The joys of technology. All right. Yeah, Jasmine said we can hear you. Everyone else can hear me okay, so I'm not sure. I think when I popped her on mute, yeah, she's going to hang up and redial in. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll wait for her to come back in. Same thing, if at any time you can't hear anything or it goes black or any of those things, let's try and troubleshoot this together and just jump on the chat. So you've got to let me know as well if you can't hear things or can't see things. People are going to be probably dropping in and dropping out today, so I'll just have to try and manage that technically as well. So sorry if I get a little bit distracted between these slides. So just with a little bit of the housekeeping, some things that I wanted to share with you, just a bit of a debrief about this program. I'm so honoured that you've all willing to be my guinea pigs and come on and join this program. And can I just say that this is about empowering women, creating a sense of community, supporting each other, to be the best that we can be. And a lot of women that I work with feel a bit of an imposter syndrome. They go, am I good enough? Can I do this? Am I capable enough? And doubt themselves. So if you feel like that, you're not alone, because that's a common thing that I see. The goal of this program is to really help you find your superpower and for you to feel supported by community. Community is the really important thing here. The truth be told, with this training today, yes, it will help you. You're probably only going to retain about 10% of it. Most of the learning is the practical application of the knowledge and learning from your peers and learning from people. So there's an online portal that I think most of you have joined into. I really want to encourage you to keep engaging with that. I'm going to be keeping you accountable to some of the things that you're going to share with me and everyone else that you're going to commit to. So I'm going to give you some action steps. I'm going to be asking questions. I'm going to give you some videos and tools to read and watch. So that is where the learning will really happen. It's the actual application of that and sharing with other people. I just did some international leadership competency training with a company called Korn Ferry. They're recognized internationally as doing research around competencies that are required for leadership. You're all going to get a taste of that. Normally it costs thousands of dollars. You're going to be my guinea pigs. I'm going to practice on you. I've just learned how to do this stuff. And their research actually shows that they talk about the 70, 10 and 20 rule, I think it is, in terms of what we learn. Now, 10% of what we learn is through mistake. So the mistake is really important as well. I've got a Zoom user on here. I'm assuming that's you, Lou. I'm going to hope that that's you and not some random strange person that's joined in the group, but hopefully that's Lou that's joined in. Okay, so to get us warmed up with that interaction, I want you to, for me, type into the chat where you're all from and what inspired you to participate in this program. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see where everyone's from. My goal is to really work with regional, remote women. And so most of you, I think, are coming from regional areas and outback, some women who work in the outback and on remote communities and stations as well. I really want to be working with those women as well. So if you start typing, while you're typing in the chat, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about me. Nicola's just joining us. Give her a little minute to get her camera and her phone on, her mic on. Hi, Nicola, we're just starting. Lovely to have you join us. What everyone's doing at the moment is just typing. I'm waiting for it to appear in the chat. I'm going to get everybody to type in the chat where they're from and what inspired them to participate. So if you want to do the same thing and just pop your Zoom on mute if you can until you want to ask a question or until I ask you a question, because otherwise we'll have lots of background noise. Lovely to see you here. Thank you for joining in. Okay. Oh, Nicola, that's you, Lou.
Yeah, hi.
So I don't know who the Zoom user is. Hello, Zoom user. Who are you, Zoom user?
Sorry, I had to go to Plan B, everyone. Sorry about the interruption.
What was that? What happened? You don't know.
I just had Dad and the kids in the background and thought I was hooked up, so apologies for that.
All
I'm in
good.
bed now.
Oh, way to go. Oh, Yvonne's. Hello, Yvonne. Hello, Yvonne. So some people know me, some people don't. So Elle's going to join on 2 devices so she can have the chat open on one and the screen on the other. Way to go. Like it. Okay, Elle, I'm going to start with Elle. Elle, I'm based at Keppel Sands near Rockhampton, but I travel and work throughout central Western Queensland area. That is awesome. Here comes the L number 2 on Zoom. Yvonne's in Alice Springs. Yvonne, and you're the Zoom user, got it. Yvonne, this stuff you will have seen before. I've done this with you before, so it'll be a bit of a refresher for you, but it would be so good, Yvonne, to get your take on some of this stuff. Elle, can you pop yourself on mute? You're going to give us feedback.
Trying to.
I'll try.
Got it.
Oh, she's got it. Oh, cool. Okay. Who else? Jasmine, Barry, New South Wales, taking the leap this year with 2 new businesses. And although not managing anyone, I want to strengthen negotiation skills and confidence. I believe everyone is a leader in their own right. Yes, I totally agree with you, Jasmine. There's always someone looking to us for guidance or direction. If you're a parent, that's what I often ask in leadership training, a parent or an auntie or an older sibling, you're already a leader. Sally from Mackenzie Creek, 10 kilometres out of Horsham in Victoria. Oh, nice. You're an empowerment coach, Sally. Great. I really love your feedback and input into what we're doing. And you love learning new things. I'd love to see your perspective on this stuff. Crystal, I've known Crystal for a long time. She used to be in Alice. She's in Darwin now. and she's keen to grow her own leadership and meet some new other wonderful ladies. And Crystal is a coach and an empowerment person. So while she might not have a massive team of people, she's a leader in her community and online. So awesome. Thank you everyone for sharing. That's great. And so the people that are watching the recording, you'll be getting some of that as well. Here comes Nicole. I can see just coming in. Oh, you've only started coaching this week, Sally. Wow. Hi, Nicole. Are you online yet?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So everyone's just typed into the chat where they're from. So we've got people from around Australia here. Maya's hasn't typed anything yet because she's on her phone. Maya's in Cairns. I'll speak up for her. Nicole, would you like to just say who you are and where you're from and why you're joining in?
Sure, absolutely. My name's Nicole Walsh. I'm living in Alice Springs. I work for the Chamber of Commerce. And I am, about to change jobs actually. And so I'm finishing up this week and going to another one, which was quite exciting. And I'm really interested in this topic and looking at leadership as well. So, I'm looking forward to connecting with others, and I will turn on my camera. I've just got into work, so I will turn it on as soon as it's connecting properly.
Thanks, Nicole. And just pop yourself on mute, but if you want to open up the mic at any time to say anything or ask it. And everyone just type in the chat as much as you want to. If you want to give your thoughts, ask anybody a question, give any advice, you can message each other. Although I can, when I download the chat, just so you know, I can read it. So if you say, oh my God, Barb is so boring, I will see it, just warning you. Not that I'm going to read it. Oh, now we've lost Lou again. She's having a great time. Lou's in Alice Springs anyway, and Lou really wants to become more resilient and develop some self-care strategies. We've got Prue joining us. You'll notice there's a number of people from Alice Springs. I'm from Alice Springs. That's why we've got a number of people here from Alice Springs. Hi, Prue. We're just getting started. We're just doing some introductions. People have been sharing on the chat and on the mic. So you haven't missed anything. We've only just started.
Okay. It wouldn't let me log on. Sorry, because I'm doing it via my phone in my car. Sorry.
It sounds like you're in a sound booth.
Sorry.
Hot. No, that's all right. Yeah.
No, I
That's
have air
awesome.
conditioning on.
Oh.
And I'm like, why is it working?
Oh gosh.
Sorry.
Well, and Prue, I know you can't stay for the whole thing, so I'm just really glad to see you here now anyway.
No, I'm very excited. Thank you.
Cool.
For
All
inviting
right.
me.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, do you know how to put on your phone? Can you pop it on mute? You're pretty quiet
Yes.
anyway, but if you want to open it up, please do. No one has to stay on mute the whole time. All right, I think we can probably get started now into having a chat about some of the work. Some of you don't know who I am at all yet, so I do apologize. Let me give you a bit of a background story. So my company is called the Hinwood Institute, and the name actually came from my long-term mentors. This is Dr. John and Judy Hinwood. And Dr. John and Judy founded the Stress Management Institute many years ago, and I studied with them and I became an intern, and then they were my mentors for a long time. Credible people. John also founded the Expect a Miracle movement. So my friends in Alice Springs get a little bit annoyed because I always plant little Expect a Miracle cards in their handbags or on their car, or that's a whole other story.
I had them stuck on my desk for the longest time.
Yeah, cool. And so the goal is to be able to shift people's mindset. So yeah, they pop up everywhere. And so if any of you want one of John's free, I've got a book that I can give you free as well. Just let me know. Maybe I'll actually pop it into the portal, the community portal as well, and you can download his ebook. So John and Judy had this, like, they were real founders in well-being and stress management. They used to coach business people. They have a background in chiropractics. They were one of the first Australians to bring chiropractic practice to Australia. And if you ask any chiropractor around Australia, if they know Dr. John Hinwood, they'll know his name because they still use his resource and material in their training. He's like one of the founders of chiropractic practice in Australia. And they just saw the impact that stress had on people's bodies and their lives. So they wanted to make a difference. Now, John unfortunately developed, I can never say this, methylosemioma, the cancer you get when you breathe in asbestos. And
That's a philioma.
that one, yes. And he was given, like, the survival rate for people that have that is like 3%. And he was determined to be one of those 3%. And he did really alternative things. And long story short, he was living, he was surviving. He was given 6 months and he was being 18 months. Then something happened and it compromised his immune system and he knew he was going to die. And people started sending messages from around the world, like saying how much he'd impacted on his life. It was extraordinary. Now, I think just before he died or just after he died, this man here, Michael, and I started having conversations about what are we going to do with this legacy of work? All of this man's work, so much, all his books and training and research, because his wife, Judy, didn't want to carry on with the business. So Michael and I decided to combine our resources, go into business together, and we named the company the Hinwood Institute. So sometimes I will reference these people up here, Dr. John and Judy Hinwood, because they're so knowledgeable and so powerful. Now, I just want to, this is a bit of a funny story. This fella here, who I've been in business with for 3 years now, I think it's 3 or 4 years, I've never physically met him. So he could be catfishing me. He could be, not who he says he is. He lives in Thailand, but it's a goal to actually meet him for real someday. So there's a little bit of a background. So let's get stuck into it. And I'm going to be asking you to share your thoughts and your experiences and things along the way as well. Feel free to drop stuff in the chat. Crystal likes that. Of course, you would like that. You're an online genius. That would float your boat. Maya's just responded. She said, I'm based in Cairns from North Queensland. I was inspired to work with Barb to improve my leadership development, improve boundaries for a healthier work-life balance, reduce stress, and increase my confidence. Barb helps me to put my dreams and vision into action, and I've gone from self-critical to self-empowered. Wow, love it. Thanks, Maya. That's lovely. In the work that when Michael and I were working together in consolidating all of this knowledge, one of the things that we found through our coaching and through the work that we've done, and anyone, Von will have seen this before, some of the local people I've worked with will have seen this diagram before. This is really common in terms of what we experience. So people typically come to me for time management. They'll say to me, because I'm known as the Time Tamer, that's my name. That was my business name before I went into the Hinwood Institute. And it's what I'm passionate about. Do you know what? When I'm coaching people on time management, I'm also having to coach them how to manage their stress in order to manage their time. Because if you can't manage your time, you get stressed. If you get stressed, you can't manage your time, right? They go hand in hand. And also what I'm often coaching people on is communication, because they're not able to say no. They're not able to set boundaries. They're not able to determine what's important to them and what's important to other people in order to be more productive and more effective. So a lot of this stuff is going to come into play when I'm sharing with you this knowledge and helping you to be more effective. So if one of these things, it's a bit like when you have a wonky wheel on a shopping trolley. If one's out of whack, it puts everything else out of whack, and it's hard to have that momentum. Like someone said before in the chat, leadership, we're all leaders at some point. There's always someone looking to us for direction. So even if you're a parent or an auntie or a sibling, you're already a leader. And quite often what I'm teaching people is to transfer that knowledge that they've learned from this area of their life into somewhere else. Well-being, me going on my Heart Foundation and getting heat stroke this morning with Lou is an attempt to develop well-being and engage with the community and improve my wellness. So, and it helps me to perform better, stay connected to my community, reduce my stress. Resilience is about being able to roll with the punches, is being able to, what I'm really passionate about is equipping women to make courageous decisions in the moment that is going to benefit them long term for their business and their team and their well-being. But being able to think about things in the moment. A lot of what we're going to be doing through this program is about reflection for you and some mindfulness and awareness. What I found in the work that I do, these are the top 3 things that people say to me when that wheel is out of whack. They feel overwhelmed, overworked, or how many times have you all said this? I'm just over this. I'm over it. I'm over it. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Yeah, we've all said that. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Some people, it takes a bit longer than others to finally get to that breaking point. There's a few in this room who know who I'm talking about. And imposter syndrome, this is a big one that we're going to be focused on through this program. I'm not good enough. People are going to think I'm an idiot. People are going to judge me. What are people going to say about me if I do this work, say this thing, apply for this job? And I can't tell you how many women, even women in senior executive leadership roles, who go, I'm not sure who I am and if I'm good enough. And something that's really interesting, I did a International Women's Talk a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of research around women not having those positions high up as men. And tell me what you think about this. I found this really interesting in terms of research. The theory was men from a younger age are learnt to deal with rejection. Because in a Western culture, it's typically the man who asks the girl out on the date. It's the man who proposes to the woman. It's always the man that's doing the asking. So they get used to being rejected. And so when they have to do an ask for something like a promotion or a discount on a car that they're buying, they feel more comfortable because they're comfortable and can deal with rejection. So it's something to think about. And if you get to the point where you're going, I'm a fraud, I'm being a terrible mum, a terrible partner, I'm not doing my job as well as I could, I've made some terrible mistakes, I look unprofessional, you then feel like you're being negligent and you try and overcompensate, overwork, push yourself, try and make up for things, and you can feel really off course. So the goal is to get you to the other side. We want to get you to the other side and for you to feel more aligned, to feel more on path, to feel inspired and motivated to go to work each day, to feel confident and to feel good about what you're doing and certain about what you're doing. So if you feel any of these things, we all do, I do, that's okay. That's totally okay. You are in a room full of safe women. You can commiserate with each other. You can share your experiences and your stories. And that's what I wanted to create with this program, is women from around Australia that feel like they're in isolation. They feel like they're in a fishbowl and being judged and criticised. And I want to create an environment and a culture where you can move over here. So I want to give you some tools, but I also want to create a community for you as well. And you've all got, there is a wealth of experience in this room just today. It gives me goosebumps, the amount of incredible knowledge that's already in this room. I'm so inspired to have you all here. Elle said she's currently studying and reading about being a super communicator. Oh, Elle, I can't wait for you to share some of your learnings. We're going to have a mastermind group and catch up in a couple of weeks after you've had a bit of a chance to digest stuff. Elle, it would be great for you to share if you get to that event, or even if you can do it online. Would love to hear some of the stuff that you've learned through that study. And if you want to, that'd be awesome for you to share. So what I want to do now, good on you. What I want you to do now is I would really like, there is a section in the workbook if you want to write any notes down, but I want to get you to open up your mics, or if you want to pop something in the chat, please feel free to open up your mics. I want to ask you some questions and to get your ideas and your thoughts. So the first question I want to ask is, what boundaries do you think are important as a leader? Where do you set some boundaries? Would anyone feel comfortable to share?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me okay?
Yes, Jasmine.
Yeah. Um, I think a big one for me is obviously to keep it professional, and don't think that as a leader you have the right to comment on someone's education or family life.
That's interesting. Yeah, especially the personal stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Does anyone have any experiences or feel comfortable to share where they feel like perhaps there've been environments where people have overstepped a boundary, and it could be like Jasmine's just said, where it's personal stuff, or they've been too invasive or too familiar maybe, or asked them to do things that were unfair and unreasonable? Sure, we've all had those experiences.
Well, I'll kick it off, seeing that I did the example.
Yeah.
Quick backstory. Had kids young, stay-at-home mum, started studying at uni, and then started to try to build my career. Started working in New South Wales government. Had quite a respected leader in the DPI say to me that I was too empathetic to be in ag and business, and that I should retrain as a nurse. Um, yeah, that was very disheartening to me. I'd only sort of just finished my accounting degree, which I was really proud of doing while managing a farm and having two young kids. So it kind of just sort of stripped away everything I'd worked hard for.
And what did you do, Jasmine? Did you go and do it anyway? You did it despite that person?
Yeah, look, I've it's been a battle for me to get anywhere, just due to, again, running my own farm, not having any family help with kids. So I haven't been able to commit myself to a full-time job. So unfortunately, no one has wanted to look at me for positions. So I've just sort of had to, I suppose, go the back way and try to forge the path myself instead of just climbing a ladder.
Yeah, good on you. And that's the resilience side of stuff, right? Forging your own way, finding the way around. That's the skills that you want to develop. That's what resilience is rolling with the punches and learning ways around some of those challenges. And that's where that's saying, what doesn't break you makes you stronger. They're the things that you learn that you can then apply into the work that you do or in your life. Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing. Prue, you opened up your mic. Yeah.
So I have a very big problem with boundaries, and I'm fairly sure a couple of people on here will know that. Because we live in a small town 1,500 kilometers away, and most of my staff are sponsored, we become their family. And I watch, people not treat them right, people give them the wrong advice, etc. And I just want to step in and go, you know what, he's not right for you or anything else. And I have to step away, and I really struggle sometimes. I've lost one of my staff who now I've had to re-sponsor to get back in the country, because she followed her dumb ass boyfriend, excuse my language. But we watch, and it's hard because most of us don't have family up here. And so we do become each other's family and rely on each other. And that's a boundary I have to sort of negotiate. Sometimes it works really well because they see that they're taken care of, etc. When I had a staff member attacked by a dog and I turned up at the hospital and realized that I was their next of kin and had to pay, well, the hospital wanted me to pay $5,000 for his surgery before the insurance kicked in, because I was
Wow.
next of kin. And I didn't realize that I was next of kin for 5 of my staff, but they all rely on me to bring them into Australia, look after them properly, etc. So my boundaries have had to sort of bend, but I also have to stand my ground going, you know what? If she wants to go out with someone that's not great for her, as long as she doesn't do the dirty on us, then I'm just going to have to let it happen. But I have a big problem with boundaries because of what I've had to deal with in the last 7 years. And Barb and Nicole know that, because they've had me on the other end of the phone bawling my eyes out or in person. And the demands on the environment. So I have to keep my staff safe. I have to get security, pick them up in the afternoons and everything else. So yes, I have to be a leader, but then I also have to sort of be their friend because they don't have anyone else when they come over. It's a different sort of thing. And I really have to tone it back and sort of, I'm now having to do meetings with them once a fortnight, which I've never, ever done, just to hold my ground and just to go, you know what, it's, I need to do the leadership thing, which is not something that I've done for the last 7 years.
That's really tricky, Prue, isn't it? And Jasmine, were you working on a farm and especially when you are the lifeline for people in those remote and regional areas where they don't have anyone else. So it does, and I've seen it in Aboriginal communities and isolated communities as well, where everybody becomes so reliant on each other. So it's hard to have those professional boundaries when you're in each other's pockets all the time. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Elle and Crystal made some good comments in the chat too, talking about, and this is really interesting. What I find really interesting is how the legislation's changed in the workforce. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it. Business owners here will know about it, that the right to disconnect. So in Australia, there is now a law that says you should not be expected to be available and contacted outside of normal work hours, unless it's part of the work, unless it's an expectation with your job or part of the work. So for some senior people, that is an expectation. But I know there's a few people that I've spoken to where that's where they get really stressed, is where there's these phone calls or these texts or these emails that are coming in outside of work time that are really impacting upon people's well-being and being able to switch off and detach from work. And Elle said being online, what we protect ourselves from what we can see, what others can see in our background. So that's really interesting as well. That can tell a lot. So for example, I work from home, but I never have business meetings here. So I'm very, very particular about that, is that my work and my personal life don't cross over. Same with my Facebook. I connect with a lot of people on Facebook, but I've got settings so that my acquaintances can see one side of me, a very public side of me, but they can't see all the personal stuff as well. So the next question that I want to move on from boundaries, but boundaries will come up a lot. Really, really important one. I'm an accredited workplace mediator, and a lot of the mediations I do, it's about where someone crossed the line, where they overstepped that boundary. The next question is, how do you inspire others? How do you inspire other people to get on board with your ideas, to participate, to connect? If you're a leader in a business or at work, how do you inspire people? Does anyone want to share?
I was just going to
Sally?
mention about leading by example, like, doing what you say, it's not do as I say kind of thing, but like, for instance, I've worked as an alcohol and drug worker, so trying to encourage the community on alcohol, but then found it very hard to not get support from the organisation when they want to get sponsored by alcohol organisations. So it's kind of like this whole, you need to be shown to be doing what you're expecting others to do, not something different.
Yes. And Sally, do you know what I think is really important about that too is another one that's really big and changes in legislation is around psychological safety. So that means that if we want people to tell us when they've made a mistake or something dangerous is occurring or there's a risky behavior, we've got to demonstrate that we're happy to put our hands up and go, yeah, I made a mistake and that was not a great thing. This is what I've learned from it. This is what I'll do differently.
Yeah. And I think there's something good in doing that and saying you've made a mistake rather than just trying to push it aside and ignore that it's happened. And yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sally. That's awesome. Crystal said storytelling and sharing your vision, being authentic, taking people behind the scene, paint the end result for people to connect into. Crystal, I really encourage you, Crystal, maybe you can in the chat, or I encourage you to do it in the forum, share some of your work that you do. You're welcome to open up your mic if you want to be able to talk about it. But Crystal is amazing at helping people to be successful and build their business and build their success through sharing their story and being authentic. Do you want to talk to that, Crystal?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, pretty much most of my work that I do is exclusively online. So obviously, if you don't have that face-to-face connection that a lot of people normally have in like a business or a work setting, the way that you connect with people and inspire people and really build a successful community is by, I guess, getting really creative and thinking about like transferring your own personal energy through the screen so that it can reach people no matter where they are. So yeah, these days I do mainly like mindset, confidence and growth coaching, particularly for early entrepreneurs who have an online business. So yeah, a lot of my work it's kind of twofold. It's the stuff behind the scenes, like building your resilience and your self-belief and your self-love. And then once you have that, what I find is it's actually really it's simpler and easier and more fun for people to then feel more confident to share their story in their business, regardless of what it is, whatever they're doing, whether it's making candles or coaching or anything. So yeah, I've just found that when you can really get clear on your own story and who you are and why you're doing this and what inspires you and just, building up a personal brand, that's really the key word there. The rest of it just kind of naturally follows, your people will find you, they'll naturally be inspired by you, and it's really lovely to be able to connect in that way. So
Brilliant.
I don't know, did that answer the question?
Yes, you did really well. And I think that's so you're a leader in that space, Crystal. You're leading, that's why I was saying, you might not have a team of people in a massive company, but you've got a whole group of people that you're leading through that experience as well. Yeah, that's great. And one of the things that that you all get an opportunity to do, so I'm doing lots of one-on-one diagnostics with people. Crystal, if you want to do, and everything is voluntary, no one is forced to do anything, but I'll be doing what's called purpose, vision, and mission. So that's being able to come up with asking you some questions that tap into an instinctive part of your brain, part of the brain that drives behavior and action. And trying to formulate some words around it. People really struggle. They go, oh, this is really hard and I don't know how to put it into words. But once they get in a flow, they're not even aware of what they're saying. I'll read it back to them and they go, oh, that's awesome. That just came out of your mouth. You just said that. But we're coming up with statements around your purpose, which is why am I here? What your vision is, where you see yourself going, and what your mission is, how you want to be getting there. So it may be stuff you already do, Crystal, but it could be something you could do with your clients as well. And you're more than welcome to utilize. It's a really simple process. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, so I'll be doing that. Everyone will have an opportunity to do that. Some people who've done some work with me already have already done some of that work as well. And so we've got the other thing too, which is about the demands of the environment. Prue talked a little bit about that in terms of her experiences as a business owner. But I also want to know about what's important, do you think, in terms of well-being? So environment, we talked about boundaries, but what does anyone want to share what is important, what effects the environment has, and or anything about well-being and what you think is important in terms of well-being?
I can jump in and
Go.
share something. It's really just around, like, as soon as you say well-being, my first thought is self-care and taking care of self before we can take care of others, whether that's, you know, as a parent, as a employee, as a manager, as a business owner. So yeah, really looking at ways that we can fill our cup, get plenty of rest, you know, creating really great daily practices that help you, I guess, you know, reconnect back in with yourself, and doing all of those things and seeing them as a priority so that you can show up in the best possible way in any sort of any position that you have.
Yeah, spot on. That was really succinct, Crystal. What we talk about is well-being being not just physical, but mental, emotional, and spiritual. Like what fills your spirit, like you said, fills your cup, but you also have to look after your rest and your sleep and your diet and all of those things. And you also don't want to be emotionally drained. Or we've all worked with toxic people in our lives where it's like, oh, they suck the life out of me. So that's all encompassed. You really captured that really well, Crystal. Elle said, I've committed to being more active because I can spend hours and hours sitting and focus on work. It gives me time to rest my brain as well as energize my body. Oh, yes, Elle, I'm there with you. I say to people, I'm a stress addict. I'm a stress management coach, but I love being stressed. I love go, 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 go. So when we talk about boundaries, it's not just boundaries with other people, it's also boundaries with ourselves. So I have to set an alarm on my phone at night that says, stop, Barbara, stop, get off the computer, go and chill out and calm down. Jasmine said, my daughter has a chronic illness and I have to give up my job to care for her. Like Crystal said, we need to self-care. I exercise every day, read, drink plenty of water, and do things for myself. That's great, Jasmine. Lou and I were having a similar conversation on our walk this morning, Lou, weren't we? I don't know if she wants to open up her mic, but we were just talking about this morning about how, yeah, we've got to look after ourselves in order to help other people. Elle, that's okay. You're welcome to pop in the chat. Like everybody can do chat or open their mics. That's fine. So you can see that what I wanted to do with that conversation, and anyone that's watching the recording, there's an opportunity for you to complete that in the workbook. It's just a reflective thing for you all to think about what it is that leadership means to you. And Prue's given some great examples of what she's learned through those experiences. Jasmine's had quite a few obstacles that she's overcome as well that have enabled her to have that stamina. I mean, already some of you women are amazing in terms of your capacity to just keep going. You keep going, and it's about understanding, I think, some of those things, and that's just the tip of the iceberg around what we need in order to have that resilience and have that stamina. Sally said, I think it's about taking breaks at work when others might not. Sally, that's a really interesting one too, because I did a women in leadership of training in Darwin about 18 months ago. And one of them, we were talking about well-being, we were talking about breaks. And one of the women said, oh, yeah, I always make sure that my team have lunch breaks. And this goes back to what you were saying before, Sally, about walking the talk. And I said to her, and do you take lunch breaks? And she goes, no, I don't have time. It's like, well, how can people feel good about themselves and going and taking a break if you don't do it either?
It's so true, isn't it? Like, and yeah, it's the whole leading by example.
Yeah.
And I think people are not realising if they take the break, they'll actually probably be more productive in the afternoon when they come back.
Yeah.
Well, they're sitting there and like, yeah. But it's hard when other people are not taking breaks. Yeah. Take
Yeah.
breaks then.
Yeah. And the research shows we're more productive if we have a break. Our brain is actually designed to work in about 45-minute cycles. So Crystal's nodding her head. So yeah, so our brain is like a machine, it needs to cool down. The engine needs to cool down. Do you find, Crystal, too, that you are more creative and more productive after you've had a break?
Yeah, 1,000%. So now I do like about 4 hours of deep work a day, which is really good.
Wow.
I actually think you originally told me about this years ago, the Pomodoro effect. So it's kind of like so I put my phone on do not disturb, set my timer for an hour, and I've got like one specific task. I go in deep, I'm in the zone, and then I'll get up and I'll, do a little stretch or something. But then knowing that I only really have to work, say, 4 to 5 hours a day, and I'll still be as productive as if I was working 8 to 10 hours a day, it takes the pressure off, and it's really changed the way that I show up and work.
Brilliant. I feel like going, hallelujah. Crystal, you will love this because you're a digital person as well. Someone told me about this amazing app called Forest, and it's the Pomodoro technique, but you commit to a particular project and you have to stick to it. And if you stay on track, your tree will grow. But if you get distracted, it'll kill the tree. So it kind of motivates you, and you build a forest. And the company, I don't know how it works, but the company that's built it is actually a not-for-profit that funds regenerative forest stuff. So for every so many hours that you work, money goes towards an actual forest. So it really motivates you to stay focused and disciplined to grow your own virtual forest, but a real forest.
So good. I'll definitely look that one up. Thank you.
Yeah, Jasmine, it's like a Tamagotchi. I never thought about that, but it's so like that. Remember those Tamagotchi toys? Yeah, you had to feed them, didn't you? Yeah. All right. So now there's some people that are going, okay, this is all great. Nice and fluffy, but can we get down to the practical stuff, please, Barbara? And when we do, everybody has the opportunity, if you want to do a DISC profile. I don't know if anyone's done that before, but that is a analysis tool of your behavioral style. And so the detail-orientated people are going, just stop talking and get to the hard stuff, Barbara. So it'll be interesting to see who those ones are in the group. So what I'm going to take you through it's kind of like Leadership for Dummies. It's the abridged version of all of this leadership study that exists. So I'm going to look at go through some different styles. Now, what's really important for leadership is, like Jasmine talked about and like Prue talked about, it's about being adaptive. Where leaders fail is when they try and apply one form of leadership based on their experiences into a new environment. If I give you an analogy, it'll be like saying, well, this works for this kid. As a parent, I'll try and do the same thing with this kid. They're different kids, different environments. You see that in work situations where people have come from this industry and then go across to this industry and it's different. This community, this whatever. So this is about you going, what is your default style of leadership? What do you typically do? What can you recognize? And where can you stretch? Now, when I do the DISC profiling with you, it's called extended DISC. So what it will do is identify what your default is, what your typical behavioral style is, and where you are currently stretching at the moment. When you stretch, it takes a bit of energy to do that. So if you're in a job that you're mismatched in, I'm going to see that straight away, and I'm going to see that where you'll eventually burn out. Or you're in your zone. But sometimes in certain jobs, we have to rein in ourselves a little bit or extend ourselves where we're not used to doing it. So it can be really, really interesting. And if any of you have done some of that with me already, you're more than welcome to share your experiences about that. So Yvonne, you've done some of this stuff with me already. I've done this training with Yvonne, so it'd be good if you want to share any insight around this. First, behavioral style. Sorry, I'll just go back a little bit. What we're going to look at is the sort of behaviors to have as a leader. What are the traits that are common in leaders, how to be adaptive, and how to create power and influence. So I'm actually going to be looking at different theories of leadership. Some people love certain ones, really resonate with some. So I'll try and reference as much as possible who the researcher is. So if you want to go and look that person up or read any of their books that you can, some of them are a bit old school and some of them are contemporary. So this is the first one, which I think is really easy to understand. And what I want you to think about, what I'm going to go through with you is where, for all of these, what the pros and cons are. What are the benefits? What are the disadvantages of these different styles of leadership? Sorry, I'm just moving my stuff around a little bit so I can read my notes a bit better. Oops. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so I want you to think of this one as a pendulum, okay, in terms of having really high control over your team and the environment, or having low control. And there's benefits and there's pluses and minuses to all of these, right? That's what we want to look at. This was actually developed, you can see down here, by Kurt Lewin. And this goes back to the 1930s, but a lot of people love this because it is really simple to understand. So if we talk about that, the high control, a lot of people will talk about this as being an authoritarian type of leadership. So this is where this person is very directive in how they lead other people. And Elle, you've made a really good point. Elle has just said, my level of control is different depending on the personal situation. Beautiful. That's what we want as leaders, for you to be adaptive. The reality is, as I show you this, you'll say, I can do any one of those. And that's what I would love for you as leaders, to be like that. However, for most people, there's a place where they feel more comfortable than others. That's kind of their default, and they will do that well and naturally. So no surprises. Mine's authoritarian. What am I doing right now? Do this, people. Sign this. Turn your mics off. Open up your mics. Answer this question. This is mine, where I feel really comfortable. So this is great for those environments where people need to be in control. They need to take command. So if you think about it, this kind of role is really, really important for an emergency department, a school teacher, those kind of environments. You have to have somebody who's taking ownership. It's probably really important in a crisis. It's this type of leadership style is really important when you don't have much time, when you're really time poor. If there's a crisis, so fire department, police department, hospitals, yeah, we don't have time. Somebody's got to take control and take demand of the situation. So they're the benefits, they're the pros. Get things done quickly. People can take control. What do you think would be the downside of this? Does anyone want to share? What do you think the downside would be of this style?
I think sometimes for me, if I'm told exactly what to do, I go, well, why should I do? Like, don't tell me what to do. Like, sometimes that's my personality. Like, I like to have some say in what I'm doing rather than being told this is what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on, Sally. Yep. Elle said people feel disempowered. Jasmine said micromanaging. And what's really interesting, Jasmine, about that is that people will stop being autonomous. They go, oh, I can't do anything until Jasmine tells me what to do. Yeah. And so people can come across as being really bossy. Yeah. In that style. Yeah. So you've raised some good points in terms of the downsides. I'm just thinking. Very good for, I'm just looking at my notes, very good for task-orientated environments where you just have to get things done. Yes, Crystal said I can find men can be this. Yeah. Accepted or tolerated, Crystal? It's accepted by women. Yeah. So it's more accepted for men to be authoritarian than women.
Yeah, sorry, I was typing quickly and it probably
But I
doesn't.
think I worked out what you were trying to say. Yeah.
Ultimately, like if men do it, I found that it's accepted or tolerated, whereas if women sort of apply the same tone or strategy, it often comes off as a lot more harsh.
Interesting. Yeah, really interesting. Then we've got the participative. And when I say to people, where do you think you sit on the scale? Everyone wants to be here. They go, oh, I'm a very participative leader. I'm inclusive. I include everyone. What do you think? Why do you think people like to be participative leaders? What's the good thing about involving your team and encourage them? Why does everyone like to be in that spot, do you think? People will like you, Sally said. Elle said a wealth of ideas. Yes, it's great. Encourages cohesiveness. These are some great comments that people are putting in the chat. Everybody wants to make sure that everyone has a fair contribution. Everyone has their say. Everyone feels like they're involved. You know, you're not favoring anyone. Good exchange of information. There's a downside to this one, though. I mean, that's beautiful. That sounds all lovely. That sounds beautiful. Kumbaya, lovely. We're all peaceful. Great. But what do you think the downsides would be? Anyone have any ideas? Well done, Elle. Yes, spot on. Nothing gets finished. Time in decision making. Well done. Yes, these can be the downsides. The other thing is you didn't do what I said you should do. I gave you my ideas and you didn't take it on board. And people can then feel defensive, you know, or start to feel like people are ganging up. Yes, Elle, people get hung up on ownership of ideas. It certainly means that things take a lot longer to get done when you want to be very inclusive. And I've done mediations where people are going through change and there needs to be a transition and a consultative process. But when does consultation stop happening and somebody starts taking ownership for the work? And that can be a tricky thing to navigate and negotiate as well. So yeah, there's the pluses and the minuses with that. Then we have the and so you can see what she's saying. Do X or Y as you see fit. And so the next one we've got is a relaxed leadership style. Whoops, went too far. Where it's low control. So this can be really useful when the best place to use this kind of leadership is when you're working with people who are experts, who have that knowledge and that feel, that experience. So pull back and let them do what they need to do. That's where that's really, really powerful. It's really only effective, yes, when you're working with that highly experienced, specialized fields of work. People can power ahead without constraint. It's great. So when you know what the outcomes are very, very clear, and you just need to let them get on and do it. You don't want micromanagement in this kind of style. People that need that kind of leadership will say, can we stop sitting around and talking about it? Enough meetings? Can we just get on and do the work? That's where people would be desiring that kind of leadership style. So they have a bit of a free rein. They're allowed to innovate. They're allowed to make decisions quickly. They can get things done and work autonomously. Crystal said there's always too many meetings. Yes. What do you think can be the downsides with this style of leadership? Anarchy, Elle said. There can be anarchy, yes. And if there is no leadership, when leadership is required, then someone will step in and take control. So that's where bullies start to breed, is in this environment. Direction can be lost. There's no common goal. Now, when I did this training, I actually had someone, because I'll ask all of you in a moment where you think your default is. Yes, you want to be a bit of everything, but where does your default tend to be? Where are you most comfortable? And this person told me that they felt their style was here. They like to sit back and let people do their job. Now, what's really interesting is that he was working in an environment where he had mass exodus from all of his team. He had no idea there was all these conflicts, all these tensions. People felt they had no direction, no clear goals, nothing was getting done, and they all resigned. And he had no idea that's how they were feeling, and that there was this animosity and there was these conflicts and these tensions, because he was so far removed, because that's where he felt comfortable, locking him in his office and letting them get on and do it. Yeah, so that can be, you can become out of touch with that leadership style. That would be a risk as well. Not clear direction and goals. Someone will step in and fill the gap of leadership and direction. You can find you have bullies that step in. So does anyone want to share? You can pop in the chat if you want to, or you can open up. Yes, you want to be a bit of everything, but where do you think you tend to default to or feel comfortable with? Like I said, I default to authoritarian. I like to be able to just get on and do things and tell people what to do. You do this, I'll do that. Let's do this, I'll do that. Anyone want to pop in the chat or open up their mic? Crystal, you default to authoritarian too? Yeah, interesting. Nicole, I'm curious. What do you think you are? What do you think? I know you can be a bit of everything, but what do you think your default is? Yeah, turn your mic off. Or you can pop it in the chat. I think Prue's participated. Who opened up their mic? Someone open up their mic?
Hi everyone, it's Lou.
Yeah, Lou.
How are you?
Yeah, good. What do you think yours is? What do you think your default?
Like probably somewhere in between participative and low.
Yes, I would have said that too.
Good. That means you're good at your job.
Yeah.
Sorry, Barbara, I was trying to find my Zoom microphone turn off. So I would probably think I probably am a little bit of everything. I think probably authoritarian, but I do know when I can sit back and understand that people have got those skills, and that's I'm happy for other people to step into that role as well.
That's good leadership, being a bit of everything. I think, Nicole, this is just because I know you, I think you probably default a little bit to authoritarian, but not in a bad way, and also because your job requires it. No, we're not going to do that. No, we're just going to do that. We're going to do this. And the nature of your job currently requires you to be like that. But you are very inclusive. You adapt to that, and you do pull back and let people get their jobs done. But I've seen you do that really well. You're really good at that when you need to, especially when the shit hits the fan, pardon the language. She's very good at that.
Thanks.
Prue said too many meetings. I used to do no meetings, off to staff meeting. You sit in it all. Oh, she's going off to a meeting. Have a good weekend.
Good weekend, Prue.
Bye, Prue.
See you, Prue.
Thank
See
you
ya.
for everyone. You're all amazing. Have a good weekend.
Prue,
I
you
have
can
to
watch
do
the
staff
rest of this
meetings
on
that I
the, yeah.
suck at.
Thanks, Prue. Thanks for your contribution so far.
Thank you. See you, beautifuls. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Okay, so that I like this one because it's really simple to understand, right? In terms of a leadership style. So if you want to go and look up Kurt Lewin, you can find out a little bit more about that one. If you want to, it's been around for almost 100 years. Yvonne said, my experience first started authoritarian, but I've since started branching towards participative. Sit sour and routine, occasionally become a bit more relaxed when the time is right. Yvonne has, I know Yvonne through her work, and it's a difficult one. Yvonne is incredibly caring person. I hope you don't mind me speaking about you like this, Yvonne. Very, very caring and compassionate person, but she has to stick to the rules within her job and be firm sometimes. So it's really hard. She needs to be empathetic. She is naturally very inclusive and empathetic, but she has to swing into this. But she started branching towards participative. So there you go. Okay, and it's good too, Yvonne, for you having done this before with me to be able to reflect and see where things have evolved and changed. I'm going to show you now. This style is called by Daniel Goleman. It's not actually on the slide, but it is in the workbook. This one's a little bit more complex, but it's a lot more common. So this is more in terms, it was developed by a psychologist, and it was a 3-year study of 3,000 managers to see what they saw as common traits with those managers and how people feel about their work. And like you've all said, good leadership is about being adaptive. So these were the 6 kind of traits that they felt they needed to apply. They needed to swing between. So each one, again, has its benefits and its drawbacks. So similar to what we were talking about before, but just a little bit different. So the first one is commanding. So that's a bit like that authoritarian one. That is, do what I tell you to do. This is where you need immediate compliance. We don't have time. No discussion, no negotiation. So you use this one in a crisis situation or to win a race where people follow the rules and work cohesively. But of course, you can alienate, as we talked about before, you can alienate people in applying this one. So one of the things that you can do as a bit of an activity afterwards, based on some of the conversation we have here, is in that little workbook, is for you to reflect where you would use this and where it says, when should I use this and what are the drawbacks if I use this too much? Where do I need to be careful? So the commanding one is, when you need to take control, when things need to be done quickly, when things need to happen, but if you do it too much, you come across as bossy. So as I said, just for yourselves in reflection, think about where you might need to use this in your work environment, and you want to be careful you don't default to that too much. The visionary is still a little bit authoritative, but this is more, I want you to think about this as come with me. Yeah, Elle said be commanding when things are getting off track. That could well be when you're using that style. And Elle, you could also use it in the visionary. Like what I often see in workplaces when conflicts start to occur is when people feel that the direction they're going is different. We should be doing this for our clients. No, we should be doing this. I thought Crystal will find this too in her business, when people buy into something thinking they're getting one thing from you, but you're actually selling or offering something different. I mean, you get better in that in business as you go along. Prue has a wellbeing centre where they do massage and things. Now, anyone who's worked in that industry knows that there's fellas that come in thinking they're going to get something different from the ladies. Even though the advertising clearly says that it's not that, but because it's very private and it's very intimate, you know what I'm talking about. So sometimes in business and sometimes in work, we have to bring people back on track. What is the priority here? What's our goal? What's our vision? What are we meant to be doing? At the end of the day, who are we serving? And when people come into conflict, it's because those things get misaligned. So this one's really important when an organisation is going through change, or if you're changing what you're doing with your business, for example. I did do that sort of work before, but I'm not doing it anymore. So this is when your team needs this, when they need guidance. They need to go, why are we here? Why are we doing this? When they've lost their mojo. The downside, if you could have a downside, because that's beautiful, I think, but the downside is when you're working with a team of experts who are a little bit more informed than you, or a bit more experienced. That can be where the challenge is. So you think you know where things need to go, but they could also be jaded as well. It'll never work. Tried that before. Doesn't work for me. All right. Next one is affiliative. People come first. So there was a great movie that came out last year, Boys on the Boat, I think it was called. It was so interesting, understanding how they really have to work as a team together. And if one person has one failing, then the whole team has a failing. So this is very much about people come first. This is very much about we won't get what we want unless we work as a team, unless we've got strong relationships, unless we've got trust, unless we've got a bond. So if you work in an industry where it's providing care services, so Lou, in your industry, this type of leadership would be really important because you need to have a holistic approach and you need to work cohesively as a team, and understand each other's strengths and weaknesses to be able to get to those goals. Go and talk to that person, they're good at that. Go and talk to that person, they're good for that. Very much about creating this, the leader here needs to create emotional bonds. This one's really important for stressful organizations as well. When organizations are working in a stressful environment, so it could be where you're a crisis center, or Nicole, it could be when you're working on an event, right? And you're running out of time and things are going wrong. It's about helping people through their challenges and their stresses and getting everybody online. If you see, this is why I've got the rowers. If you see boys on the boat in the story, one gets really sick and one has mental issues, and they all have to, in order to win the race, they've all got to work together in order to be able to win, to be able to perform. The downside, if you can have a downside with this one, is that you get too soft. Oh, they're there, it'll be okay. Oh, and so then people underperform. It's like, don't worry, leave that. That person can pick up the gap for you. So people can become too complacent and not resilient. They're not courageous, not innovative. So if you overcare or overcompensate. I don't know how I feel about that one, but yeah. So it's basically the theory is with this one is that overpraise, over nurturing. I'm going to be careful. I don't know about how I feel about that one. Democratic is where you want to get consensus from everybody. What do you think is the underlying one for this one? And so you want to build, the goal is to build consensus through participation. So you want to get constant feedback from people, you're getting their ideas. It's where you, trying to think of, there's a particular term, an agile approach to projects and business. You change direction as you get the information. You adapt and you learn and you grow, but it's really, you need consensus from everybody in the direction that you're going with things. So being on a board would be a very democratic, typically being on a board or a committee, you're typically in a democratic environment. It's important, this one, when it's necessary for everybody in the team to have buy-in. So if you think about a board, everybody has to agree. Everyone has to own it and take responsibility for it, be on board for whatever you decide to do. It's really difficult, as you can imagine, to get everybody on board. If you've ever been on a committee or board trying to organise something, it can be really, really challenging. Excuse me, you don't want to use this one when you've got a crisis. Pace setter. Lou's really good at this one with the walking group. It's about getting the pace, but making sure you've got to be careful that you don't leave someone behind. So you're saying, come on, we're going to do it. Come on, keep going. Yeah, we're nearly there. You're getting people to get to the end of something, but you've got to be careful. So you're kind of setting the pace, but you've got to be careful that you don't push people too hard and leave them behind with this one. So you use this one when a team is already motivated and competent, but you need to get them to speed up or you need to get some results quickly. So you think about that as like a fitness coach. Come on, 3 more reps. Come on, you're almost there. But you know if you push people too hard, that they can just go, oh, it's too hard, I'm quitting. I can't do it. So you've got to be careful with that one. And then there's the coaching, which you're probably all familiar with, which is basically try this, have a go doing this. This is about developing people's skills and being reflective and helping them to apply their own knowledge and learning. So looking for them to feel a sense of ownership around the work. This is about building people's personal strengths and giving them confidence to do the work. Doesn't work when people are stubborn. It's too hard, not going to do it. Tried it before. You'll never coach those kind of people that don't have that mindset. It's just that leadership style is just not going to work. So your goal, what I want you to do is, as I said, a bit of homework, is to go through that worksheet and see when do you think you could use this? When could you focus on doing this a little bit more? Because you probably default to something you feel comfortable with. And then there's also an activity on the worksheet which you can do in terms of, think of this as a water level. Remember that the theory with this style of leadership is you want to have a little bit of everything through your working week, your working month, whatever. So how much, I think the question says, the block below represents your working week. Each pillar is like a rain gauge. Use a visual representation to show the amount of each leadership style you think you demonstrate in an average week. Like, what do you think you do? And how full or how low is the amount in a week? So what I often get people to do is to go, this is probably, if I'm realistic with myself, this is probably where I'm at, but I probably need to push this one a little bit more. So it could be, I probably need to spend a bit more time coaching and supervising my team because I'm just giving them direction, but I'm not actually developing their skills because we're so time poor. You know, I probably need to focus on building that more. It could be that, for example. So that's a little bit of homework for you to do. How are we going? Do you feel like you need a little bit of a break? Do you want to have a breather? Little 10 minutes to go and get a drink, go to the toilet, do that sort of thing, and then we'll come back. Yeah. All right. So I'll turn my camera and my mic off. You'll know I'm back when both of those things are back on. Yeah. Hello, I'm back. Thanks, Crystal, for letting me know stop the recording. I hope everybody had enough of a break. And those watching the recording, I hope you realize that we're having a little break and that I stopped the recording and started it again. Alrighty, I'm going to keep moving through some different styles. Now we're going to look at situational leadership. All of these are going to feel really similar. This is about what you do in different situations. And I'm going to test you a little bit and see there's some activities that we can do here. I realized too, looking at the workbook, I repeated some pages. So sorry about that. I don't know how I did that. Already some valuable feedback through this process. So what we're going to look at, this is a really good one to look at because when we're in the moment, we default with what's familiar and comfortable. We do what we're used to always doing. And so your goal and your challenge is to be more aware of what you're doing and see if you can try something a little bit different. At the end of the training today, I'm going to ask you to kind of commit to some things. And I want to see when we come back into our group session, when we're having a bit of a conversation, I want to see how you go with that, what you observed, what you learned. Did you try something and it didn't work? So this situational leadership could be one that's really good for that, testing the waters of different styles and see if you have an opportunity to test it out. So you can take some notes if you want to in the workbook about what these different styles are. And then I'm going to give you some scenarios and see what you think you might apply in those different situations. So the first one, once again, it's like the authoritarian, the commander, those kind of ones. It's direct. So this is where you're going to say, look, here's the problem. This is what we're going to do about it. It's where you're taking charge and telling people what they need to do. It's very much a one-way communication. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. You're going to need to do this. I don't want you to do this. This is to ring this person and tell them this. Tell the client that this is not going to happen. So it's really important to know that the responsibility sits with you in this kind of communication. You will be held accountable for this later on. So you have to be very clear in your communication and really take ownership with this communication and the command that you are giving to people. So this kind of style is really important for crisis, upholding the safety, reputation of your business or organization. So that's where you use this one. Persuade is the next one. This is where you've kind of got to be a sales agent. You've got to get someone to change their mind, change their attitude, get on board. This is not where you're a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more empathetic to the person that you're working with. So you're going to say, look, here's the problem, but here's the benefit of us doing things differently. Here's the problem. Here's what's in it for you in terms of doing what I'm going to need you to do. So you're trying to get somebody on board with things. There's a little bit more two-way communication. But what's really important to remember in this leadership style is that responsibility still sits with you. Like, I know you don't want to do this thing, but you have to do it, is kind of at the essence of this. You're a little bit more understanding, but you're trying to get their buy-in. So that's why it's persuade. And so I'm sure you can think of some situations where that might occur. Then we've got consult. So we've talked a little bit about this already in terms of that collaboration. So this is where you say to your team, for example, or a group of people, look, here's the problem. I'm going to come and talk to every one of you. And only when I've spoken to every one of you and got some feedback, done some polls, whatever it is, will I then decide on a course of action. So you still have responsibility, but you're making sure that you've got all the information from everybody before you make a decision on something or before you enact on something. You're getting everybody's side of the story. Think about it that way. You would use this, for example, in a conflict situation, potentially. Someone's making a complaint about, you're the leader and someone's making a complaint about somebody. You probably do your due diligence and go and get as much information as you can. There is a little bit more responsibility on the team in the sense that they have to take ownership. They have to be forthcoming with information. You may need commitment or buy-in from them, whatever it is, but ultimately the decision still does sit with you, but it's passing over to them a little bit more now. Delegate is where you will, where you're letting go of some of that responsibility a little bit more as a leader. So I'm going to leave this in your hands, Fred. I'm going to get you to own this task and I'll leave it in your hands. Here's the ultimate goal, but I'm going to put that responsibility with you. So you still do have a level of ownership, but you are passing a lot of that responsibility over to somebody else now. They're going to go off and do that work and you're going to trust them to do that. So obviously you want to be working with people that you can trust, that have the experience, have the knowledge, know the vision, are very, very clear with that. So for us in business, for those of us in business, we've got to make sure that our communication is really clear with people in order to entrust them to do something for us. We're going to pay them to do something for us. We're going to make sure that they understand what we're trying to achieve, what our goals and expectations are. So the team leader or the leader is responsible, but members that you're delegating to are responsible for how something is being done. They may even be responsible for planning and implementation, but it's your responsibility to monitor and have a good system in place to monitor. Delegation's a whole other thing. Unite is what we were talking about before in terms of that, in terms of having getting everybody on board. You want to get consensus from everybody. So a leader is facilitating a decision-making process. So a chair and a board is getting everybody, making sure the conversation happens in a way for everybody to be united on a decision, and it's unanimous agreement around something that's going to, a course of action that's going to happen, or something that's going to evolve, like a course of action. So your leadership responsibility in this role is you're really handing over that responsibility to the people that you're leading. It's in their hands to come up with a decision. Your role is to facilitate the conversation, though, making sure it's fair and equal. So like I said, a good chairperson has this kind of responsibility in this kind of leadership. So what I want to think about, there's some scenarios in the workbook. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can put something in the chat if you like, or it's a bit of a quiz, a bit like a pop quiz. I want to see, based on those leadership styles, what leadership style you might adopt in these different situations. And I would love to hear from you why. So I'm just going to pick a few. Let's start with deciding on how, I'm just going to jump to some, deciding on how staff Christmas party is going to be celebrated. So let's pretend you're Prue and all of your staff are going to do something for Christmas and you want to decide where you're going for the Christmas party. What style would you use here? You can open up your mics if you want to. Oh, Crystal said consult.
I actually led this year with a consult and then a delegate because people were struggling to make up their minds at what they wanted to do. And I was going to Darwin, I think. So I delegated it. And I think when you do that, you do need to wear whatever happens. And it wasn't a bad thing. It was just an interesting.
Interesting.
yeah, just the timing of it, and it was a great day, and they did such a good job. But I'm not necessarily sure I would have had alcohol at 11:30 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? So it's
You have to live with their decision.
but
I
yeah,
guess.
you have to live with it. Like, it was really good because they really wanted to do it during lunch because everyone had young kids, and and the place finished at 2, so we wanted to make sure we had enough time for people to think. But we beautifully got there as like people still with mums and bubs, and we've got light red wine. So you do have to, and it was lovely. It was a beautiful day. There was no issues, but you do need to then, I think.
What's really interesting about that one, Nicole, is that's actually Unite, because you weren't part of that decision. They all did it. They all agreed on it, and they made a choice about where it was going to be. And so no one was narky about it because they all were united around where they were going to go. So while you delegated that responsibility, it was actually a Unite methodology. Yeah. So it's interesting. I could see with Crystal going, consult. Yeah, I will hear from all of you where you want to go for the Christmas party, but ultimately I'm going to decide. That's what consult is. So you could annoy a few people. It's like, why are we going to that restaurant? I hate that. I'm vegetarian and they've got no vegetarian options. Why has she chosen? So you're going to get someone who's a bit snotty about it. So you could, like, if it was a price thing, you could go, well, that's the cheapest. That's where we're going to go. Yeah, that's trivial. A bigger group needs to still have one person to have responsibility. I have been on social committees for big corporations where trying to decide where you're going to go for a Christmas party, it's a nightmare. There's always one cranky person. But isn't that interesting in terms of considering what leadership style you might have could create a different outcome? Like Nicole said, in terms of, well, that's interesting, where we were drinking at 11:30 in the morning and for a business Christmas party. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but yeah, so it's an interesting outcome. Okay, you've got a negative employee. So let's assume that you're in a position of leadership and you trying to work with someone who's got a bit of a negative attitude at the moment. What kind of leadership style do you think you might adopt, having to deal with that negative person? Well done, Jasmine. Persuade. Yeah, Sally's got persuade as well. So Jasmine, do you feel comfortable? Open your mic. Why did you choose persuade?
Just in it would just it's just always so beneficial to chat things over and help change a mindset. Look at someone's mindset, see how they're viewing something, and just see how you can turn that around and get them to view it differently.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You want to help them reframe the situation, get their buy-in to the situation. Yeah, that's good response. I noticed that Al and Crystal said consult, and I understand why you would do that, because you're consulting them. The theory of this is that it's more than one person. So you could consult a whole heap of people to find out why that person is negative and then come up to your own decision. However, the probably the better need to find out why they feel that way. That's right. So in your ideal leadership style, you're asking lots of questions. You're still going to perhaps persuade might not be could feel a bit manipulative. Let's say influence. You want to influence their attitude to be more on board. So of course, yes, totally agree. You want to find out why they're negative, what's going on for them, because that will inform you in order to be able to support them and influence them to shift their attitude. So I would say, let's say persuade or influence is probably ideal. Consult is more about getting everybody's story around why this person's negative before you make a choice or take action, which you could do, but I don't know that that's the one we're looking for here. So what about Notifying the team that they will need to work on the long weekend. Ooh, what? This is a bit of a contentious one. What would you choose for this one? Oh, are you saying 100% direct? Yeah.
I guess if they've got to do it, you kind of really need to be direct to tell them that they've got to do it.
Yes, Sally, that's it. Yeah, this is it. There's part of it. You might try persuade. Like, I understand it's a long weekend and you want to spend time with your family, but if we do this activity, then this will happen. But I think you're probably right, Sally and Elle, it's direct. Yep. Appreciate it's a long weekend, but we're all going to have to work. That's the way it is.
I think though it depends on too the lovely new laws that we do have and all the rest of it as well, depending on
Good
those
point.
kind of things have a really big, I agree, but all can probably maybe persuade, but I think some of the new laws.
What would you happen in your situation, Nicole, if there was a major event for the Chamber of Commerce that was actually happening on a long weekend? The dates can't be changed, has to happen on that weekend.
I would be looking, so for me, it would in their position description, would there be, there would be, so in our position descriptions of the events, there would be that after hours work is required on weekends and so forth. If not, and if it's not in there, because I guess I've learned you need to be really careful. I would be persuading, but you would hope that you'll be having these conversations leading up to things. I do agree with direct, and if it's a position, I guess so where something is urgent and of really, of really such importance that it's actually going to have a really big impact, then I reckon you'd be a little bit more direct as well. Like if we don't do this, compared to, well, we said to an event it's not really your role, but would really love you to come and help. That's probably how I'd approach that one.
Yeah.
Depending what it was and what the position was.
Yeah.
Because I've learned that in the last couple of years.
Brilliant. That's what we want. I want to hear from people about what they've learned through these experiences. Okay, what about, I'm just going to jump to the last one. A staff member is falling behind in work. So you're a team leader or a business owner or a manager, and you've got a team member that is falling behind in their work. What approach might you take for that one? I was saying direct, but some persuasion. Sally said persuade. Oh, Jasmine's saying delegate. What do you mean by that, Jasmine? What would you do? Just tell them what they need to do?
I suppose it's the way we all view the scenario, really.
Yeah.
If it's important work that really needs to get done, we might need to take away some of the work and delegate it to others in the team. To get the work done and reduce the stress of that individual, and then also delegate and prioritize the tasks for that individual.
You're onto something there with that, Jasmine, in terms of that approach. Nicole, you've got your mic open. I don't know if you've still got it open. Are you going to say something? No. Okay. Because I thought you would, because you would deal with this in your organisation. The answer I'm looking for on this one is consult. And Jasmine was getting there, because if you've got a team of people and someone is falling behind, it could be because of their incompetencies, or it could be not an equal distribution of work. So they're carrying the load, or things are bottlenecking with them, or they're getting held up by other people. So if you've got a team of people, then you might want to consult with them to go, what's going on here? And like Jasmine said, look, I might delegate some of this work to you, Max, after consulting everyone, because Fred here is a bit loaded. So I'm gonna entrust you to do this work.
And I think what you said, Barbara, too, about competencies as well, as like where they're up to, where expectations of what they actually are competent to do or not. And I think when you consult with them, you can probably work that out a little bit more.
Yes, that's right.
To see where bottlenecks coming from.
And also what's important in what you're saying there too is consulting with others about how they're doing with that work. So you might say, how's Fred going? And that someone can say, oh yeah, look, he really struggles with stuff on the computer. I can see him getting really frustrated and he forgets to save things or whatever. So that consulting with other people can help inform you as well. Yep, definitely situational. Is that based on the situation? I think that's what you mean. Yeah. So you can see that this is about looking at which type of what you need to do based on the scenario. We all like to fall to what we feel comfortable with. Like some people, everyone likes to be consultative, but sometimes you just need to be direct. So it's about thinking about how do I need to approach this situation? I'm going to show you another one. Has anyone seen this one before? It's been around forever. This one's by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. It's really, really popular in leadership training. People, you can type in the chat yes or no if you've seen this image before. No, Crystal, you haven't seen it. Okay, cool. A little bit more complex, this one. You haven't seen this one, Nicole? I'm surprised you haven't seen this. Oh, cool. I love it when I get to show people something they haven't seen before. Okay. Takes a bit to read this one. Because it's basically a rating or an energy. So if we go across the bottom, do they need directive behavior, low or high, or supportive behavior? So do we need to support them or do we need to direct them? So you've got a bit more of a feel about that based on what we've been talking about already. And it's based on where they're at that time. So it's you really being aware of what that person that you're leading needs at that time. If you're a parent, you've probably had to do this. You probably have default parenting styles that you have, and then you're going, well, my kid's really stressed at the moment, I'm going to back off, or you kind of start to become a little bit aware. So as a leader in a working environment, you need to do the same. And it doesn't matter if you're a business owner like Crystal, where you're going, whoa, just assessing where a client you're working with or somebody that you're given some work you've subcontracted, you can apply the same methodology. It's just about seeing where they're at and trying to assess where they're at any time. So if you have a look at these colors up here, it kind of says if they're sitting in here, then this is the approach that you would take. So if somebody's got a high level of competence, like we've been talking about skills and capabilities and competence, and they're really motivated and they're really committed to the work, then it's green. It's saying we need to delegate. So they don't need we don't want to give them too much instruction. Do this, don't do this, whatever. We want to put it in their hands and trust that they'll get to an outcome. And they don't need too much support from us because they're pretty skilled. They know what they're doing. They're highly competent. They're really motivated. They're really committed to the work. Off you trot and off you go. So if you're used to giving people instruction, pull back, let them go and do what they need to do. If they've got a moderate to high level of competence and their commitment's wavering a little bit, then they're going to need a little bit more support. What this is telling you is that maybe they've got capabilities, but their confidence is wavering, or they're losing their mojo, they're a bit deflated, are they bored? You've got to check in a little, you've got to turn up that support a little bit more. So they may not need more direction, you need to check in. They probably need a little bit more supervision maybe. If we've got low competence and low commitment, then they're needing it's saying that they've got low but some competence, they need a bit more coaching, which makes sense. So they need a bit more training, helping them pull out their skills, giving them a bit more support, saying high directive and high supportive behavior. Let's talk and I'll help you decide on what needs to be done. And then we've got low competency, but really, really committed. So they need you to tell them what to do. They need the direction. This is how you do it. Great, off you go. This is what I want you to do is this and then do that. Woohoo, off you go. So Nicole, I'm sure you've had people like that who really enthusiastic, but they need you to tell them what to do. And if you don't tell them what to do, they're going to lose their mojo. So they're really motivated. They're just not experienced. So they need you to give them some step-by-step instructions. So they need that direction. So a lot more direction, but may not need as much support. I find this one a little bit complex. You like this diagram, Crystal? Yeah? You like it too, Nicole? The purpose of this one is to not default. Like you and I, Crystal, we're coaches, so we would want to default to that all the time. But we've got to recognize that people are different, and sometimes it's useful. You just start up here going, okay, are they committed? Are they not committed? Where are their skills at, and their capabilities? Yeah, you can see where some of your teams sit there. That's cool, Nicole. So perhaps you can explore these guys a little bit more. Like I said, this one's really, really popular in leadership training because it shows, yeah, Els, that's really, really good point. Good point for anyone working offshore with offshore workers. This becomes really important. Yes, and I can so vouch for that. Where I've worked with people, I'm going, whoa, I'm overloading them. I've handed over too much to them, and they're drowning because they don't quite have the competency and the understanding. They need a little bit more coaching from me and a bit more support in order to do the work. I'm just so used to delegating stuff to people as well. Yeah. So, the key, what I want you to be more aware of in between now and our next sessions together is start to try and be a bit more objective and going, oh, where am I sitting at any point in time? What do I think I'm applying? And should I try something different and see if you get a different result? Alrighty. Any thoughts, other thoughts, comments, or questions around that? Anyone got anything they want to say in relation to that? Your feedback in the chat's really good. No? Right, I'm going to keep moving. This one is not necessarily a model that you would want to apply, but it is one that exists. And it's about knowing the environment that you're in. So this is why I have this military picture, because this is one that sits within military, police force, hospitals. It's very, very transactional. It's not touchy-feely. It's like do the work. And what you will find is that there is reward and punishment with this style. If you do this and do it well, you'll be rewarded, you'll be promoted. If you don't do this well, there'll be consequences. So that's why you will see that if you think about the police force, for example, or the military, or in health, if people stuff up, people die, accidents happen. But if they do things really, really well, then they get promoted. And if they can achieve outcomes and achieve goals, then they get benefit. This kind of leadership style requires people to obey instructions to the book. So the instructions cannot be compromised. Police force, laws cannot be bent. Although sometimes cops will go, oh, I'll let you go on this one. You know, you were speeding. I should give you a parking fine. So Nicole's saying, I'm doing a course at the moment and there's been quite a bit of discussion of this type of leadership and country's values. Do you want to expand on that, Nicole?
Yeah, we went to New Zealand in October doing this course, and yeah, they just talked about generally how the difference, Australia is a little bit more transactional perhaps than, and I can't speak on behalf of New Zealand people, but this is coming from New Zealand people themselves, a little bit more, it's not as transactional, it's more, what's probably the next slide that's coming up, Barbara, transactional and...
Oh, there's
like relationship driven.
yeah.
Yeah, just it takes a long. This part starts at, you start at this part getting to know who each other is and their family and so forth, and then whereas there was a general feeling of all the people speaking about leadership that it was perhaps Australia was a little bit more transactional, but I'm not saying for everyone, but it was just a
Interesting.
really interesting conversation. Yeah. Anyway.
Lou said too, sometimes not always generational. What do you mean by that, Lou?
G'day, everyone. My dad, for example, he's a migrant, and when things started to become more red tape, he didn't cope. So he's running his own business, and then he had to get a builder's permit and police check and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes I work with older cohort who are set in their ways, or based on their values, they won't proceed with certain employment requirements because of stubbornness and so forth. So I guess if you're coming into that older generation, they're less likely to accept change. But that's just an observation that I've made through recruiting volunteers and staff. Also, another example is I have a family member who has PTSD from significant bullying by men in the force, in the police force. And it comes back to, that 60 plus age mark. And those people aren't going to change. So, I think that's what I mean. I think that adjusting to change if you're an older person, and also trying to, I guess, change yourself if you're an older person.
Yeah. Yeah, and this model, it's old school, but it only applies in those industries where you have to be bound by laws and rules and those kind of things, where you have to take the clear direction of that leadership. There's not the flexibility. And so, yeah, Lou, sometimes older generation may not tolerate that, or they've been brought up in an era where you do as I say.
Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Thank you for sharing your ideas. The next, so that, it's not necessarily one that anyone here needs to have, but like Nicole said, it's interesting to see if certain countries sit with that kind of style, or it's a cultural thing, or people have come from an industry into another industry. We've all had that, haven't we? Where we see somebody who's ex-police force coming to work for a business, or, a school teacher that's now coming to work in this particular field. They're going, whoa, they're really transactional in their style. This one's a really interesting one. This is transactional analysis. I don't know a massive amount of this one, but this became really, really popular in the 80s. And it's about looking at where somebody is sitting at any particular time and when you default to certain styles. So, for example, sometimes if I think about it, there is, I was doing a mediation recently where a particular team member was playing off one leader against another within an organization. One was a female who was very kind and soft and generous, and the other one was pretty transactional. And I said, and there was each leader was giving this person different information, and this person was getting very good at playing one off the other. It was very much a parent-child role. It was like this staff member was competing against mum and dad. I haven't put parent-child and just PAC. I haven't written parent, adult, child in the workbook, just PAC. Yes, it is. So you can fill in the gaps there, Elle. It's in the workbook, but that's what PAC stands for, parent, adult, child. And so the theory is that we can default to behaviors that we've learned as a child. So you think about it, people in the workplace that throw a tantrum, because they're not getting their own way. Lou, we were having a conversation about this today, right? Yeah. So, or getting sulky or trying to let you know that they're hurt or they're wounded, that can be a real reverting back to that child behavior, for example. Where I can give you a really, really good example of this model and where it's interesting and useful is in cross-cultural environments. So in Central Australia, there's an Aboriginal organisation called NPY Women's Council. And they have a model of leadership in there that they call Malparara Way. Malparara is a word that means two friends working together to achieve something. So they are constantly flipping this model. So to give you an example, there will be an Aboriginal worker, very senior woman, not used to be woman, it's changed a lot. There'll be a senior Aboriginal woman who has a responsibility in the organisation. And then there is a non-Indigenous person that's working with that woman. So when they go into cultural environments, go into Aboriginal community and the non-Indigenous person has to adopt the child role. They're a child in terms of their knowledge and experience. They're just a baby in this cultural place. And so ideally they want to be curious in their role. We don't want them to sit there and be rebellious and have tantrums, but they have to remember that they're the child and there's an adult or parent role of that Aboriginal person to keep them safe, to make sure that they don't breach cultural protocols. So they are calming, nurturing, supportive, understanding, empathetic of that person that doesn't have that cultural knowledge. Then we flip it. Then there is the bureaucracy that you have to deal with, government, laws, funding bodies, all of that kind of stuff, the very Western style of business and work that you need to deal with. So that is where the non-Indigenous person comes into that role. They have to guide the Indigenous person who will take that child role in terms of their learning and capabilities. They're supporting them to go through, be safe and look after the cultural integrity, but doing the compliance stuff that you need to do for a funding body, doing the reports, doing all those kind of things. So that's, I think, a really good example of where that model actually fits within a workplace. But you can also, psychologists love this one, can I just say, because they're going, oh, you're reverting to the childhood trauma and behaviours and da-da-da-da in that work position. Ideally, we want to all be grown adults, don't we, in the workplace? But it's an interesting one. Like I said, I don't know a lot about that, but it's still a leadership model. What do you all think about that one? Any thoughts, comments, insights, questions around that one? Interesting? All right, I'm going to move on to just a last model before we've got some more work to do, but this is just the last ones of the models. So I just, because of this one, we needed to fit it on the page. You just need to flip over to page 14 of the workbook if you've got it. And this is where, so it's a little bit interactive, make it a bit more interesting for you. There are some blanks to fill out on the workbook. Anyone watching it, you don't have to, but it just helps you to try and learn to embed some of this learning into your brain and into practice. Crystal said, I personally relate more to the previous model. Yeah, I know PAC's a bit out there. The PAC model's a bit out there. So this is about inclusive leadership, and this is a theory which says this is how you, for those, we all love to be inclusive. So if you like to be an inclusive leader, these are the elements that research shows that you need in order to create that participation, to create a sense of belonging. This one's really powerful in terms of creating a workplace culture. And if you're wanting to keep people inclusive, keep people participating. Here's some interesting information. Research in this area found that teams with inclusive leadership are 17% more likely to report that they're performing well. So if there's an inclusive leadership style, 17% are going to be reporting that they're performing well. And 20% are more likely to say that they make good decisions, high quality decisions. So people are feeling, this one's great in terms of understanding psychological safety in the workplace as well. People feeling safe to speak up and do things. Okay, so the first word that you're going to fill out is empower. That's the first one. Does my team feel free to present viewpoints contradictory to the majority? So this is where people feel free and safe to speak up about things that might be different to everybody else. You see this more, interestingly, with millennials coming into the workforce. Oh, hello, little one. This one's really important when you need people to feel heard. If someone's feeling uncomfortable, unsafe, they don't agree with the choices, that they need to feel okay to be able to, and empowered to be able to speak up against things. All right, let's go to the next one. B, down the bottom, belonging. Jumping all over the place here. Do we enjoy healthy relationships in our team? Do I belong here? We've all felt like we're the fly in the ointment, right? So this is about, you can explore Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do I feel like I'm meant to be here? Do I belong here? Is this my place? Are these my people? And this is about what I find really interesting in workplace mediation. One of the big things that people often raise is respect. I just want to be respected. But we all know that respect means different things to different people. If you walked into a workplace, for example, and some old bloke said, "Hey, girly, good on you, girly. Keep up the good work," you would find that really disrespectful, wouldn't you? Right? I'm trying to think of an extreme situation. So we now know that that is not respectful, but it can be, people disagree about what's respectful and what's not, whether you greet people in the morning or you don't. So belonging is about, I belong here, I feel welcomed, I feel supported, I'm meant to be here. And we don't want people to start holding grudges or be resentful, because team building sits here with this one. Okay, C is the next one up the top. Do my team feel safe to make mistakes? This is a really interesting one. This is what Sally was talking about as well. We talked about before, is about walking the talk. We all make mistakes, and in fact, mistakes are fundamental to learning. You don't learn unless you make mistakes. Remember, I said to you at the beginning, Korn Ferry even says that for leaders to grow, 10% of their learning comes from a mistake. It has to exist for people to grow and learn. So is it okay for me to make a mistake, and how do I work with that? Now, in my company, we have a philosophy and approach with the team, and my team first attempt in learning, fail. Maya, I love that. She sat there quiet, not saying everything, and then she comes out with these gems. I know she's got them there. Awesome. Maya, do you feel safe and comfortable to open up your mic and talk about, Crystal says only 10%, I raise that percentage. Yes, well, of course you do. You're an entrepreneur. That's all, it is all about massive mistakes and learning. Maya, do you feel comfortable to open up your mic and talk? Can't hear you. Your mic's open, I think. No, it looks like it's off, Maya. Like your mic. Oh, 1 sec, she said. Okay. So, and Crystal, it's interesting that she responded like that, because entrepreneurship is so reliant on mistakes in terms of people being able to create something new. They're not going to get it right the first hand. Oh, technical difficulties. Okay. If you feel free, Maya, to jump in, don't worry if you're interrupting. So I always harp on about mistakes because people get so scared to make them themselves. You want to create a culture where people can have safe mistake, because it's so important for business to grow. What I was going to say to you is, in my team, we have a philosophy and an approach. When my team make a mistake, and sometimes my team have made mistakes where it's cost my business money, I will ask them 3 questions. How did it happen? And what will you do differently next time? And what did you learn from this? I really want them to, rather than being apologetic, sorry, I want them to say, yep, I'm not going to let you move on until you tell me what you've actually learned from this. That is so powerful for my business. I learned too. Did I not give them good direction? Do they not have the resources? Do they not have the tools? So having those discussions are really, really important. Crystal said, that was one of my biggest learnings, curves transitioning from employee to entrepreneur. Oh, one of your biggest learning curves, transitioning from employee to entrepreneur. Got it. Yeah. So important in business. But it's in leadership, it's really important. You are going to make mistakes. Rest assured you're going to make mistakes. Really important that you learn from them rather than beat yourself up about them. Authenticity is a really important one. We all see through people's fake stuff or whatever, but can people be themselves? Can people be their real selves? And authenticity is about you being transparent and, like Sally said, walking the talk in terms of, yeah, I don't know everything. Yeah, I did make a mistake. Yeah, I've got something to learn from this. Yeah. Maya was trying to work out her technical difficulties and she dropped off. So authenticity, this is a really powerful statement. Authenticity is the absence of pretense. It's about being consistent in your behaviors and your actions, being comfortable with how you are unique and different to others. Not trying to be someone you're not. Just being comfortable with who you are, your foibles, your weaknesses, your strengths. And you want to celebrate that, like Sally said, set that example, encourage that in everybody else. I worked with a great entrepreneur who really understood what my values were and what I wasn't good at. Like he'd say to me, don't get bogged down in the detail bar. Collaboration, we all love that. How do you get ideas from your team? How do you get their input? And we really try and do that within our team meetings when we're talking about problems, particularly if a problem doesn't sit in the wheelhouse of the person that I'm talking to. So, for example, I might be talking to my marketing team, but ask my admin team if they've got any ideas on that, or vice versa. So getting somebody else's perspective on it. So that's where collaboration can be really powerful, and seeing people's unique experiences. I found out one of my team is on the side is doing some training in Google AdWords. And I said to her, I'm going to pay you for your time, but you have to come back and share what you've learned. So I'm trying to keep her accountable to it. Okay. And the last one is compassion. Do I deeply care about the success of my team members? I will say with this one, be careful. One of the traps that I see with women is that they can care too much. By nature, women are often nurturing and caring. I was talking to Lou this morning as well about, and I can share this, I might even share it in the group portal, an article from Harvard Business Review that talked about empathetic leadership. Really interesting. So at a base level, you cannot care at all, be a psychopath that has no, and psychopaths do exist where they have limited compassion or feeling for other people. You can have sympathy, which is basically sucks to be you. Sorry about that. Too bad, so sad. That's a bit of bad luck. The empathy is what most people aspire to and is really useful, where you really feel what that person is feeling, that you really care about their journey and you want to walk with them on that. The challenge is that we can get empathetic burnout. We just keep on giving and get exhausted from that. So the next level up is what nurses and teachers do really, really well, which is that compassion, that is where you're going, I really understand your problem and I really care about you, but I'm going to make an informed decision around what within my capability I can do to support you. So yes, you do need to deeply care, but you need to make informed decisions. And this is where those boundaries come into play. Big wheel there, right? So there's an exercise in the workbook. Let me ask this to you, all of you. It says, are these scenarios inclusive or not? Yes or no? You can put yes or no. What Maya's saying. Sorry, ladies, not sure if my laptop is having mic issues. We'll jump on mic next time. Hashtag fail. All good, Maya. You can just pop in the chat. Okay, I'm going to read these out to you. Being the only right brain inclined member of my team, I got into tremendous arguments with my more left brain colleagues, but I know that there is a deep respect on both sides. Would you say that that statement is inclusive? Yes or no? You can pop in the chat, yes or no, what you think. Being the only right-brained inclined member of my team, I get into tremendous arguments with my more left-brain colleagues, but I know that there is a deep respect on both sides. No, you don't think it's inclusive. Jasmine or Sally, do either one of you want to open up your mic and say why you don't think it's inclusive? Nicole says yes.
I think the respect bit is kind of good, but I think it's an arguments. I mean, I guess if you feel safe with the arguments, it's okay, but if you don't feel safe with the arguments, then I don't think it is. If it stops you from actually voicing your opinion because you know there'll be an argument, well, then that's not inclusive because you should be free to say what you think. Depends on. Yeah.
That's a really good point. There's two words there, and that's really, really insightful. Tremendous argument sounds pretty volatile, doesn't it? Tremendous is such a big word, which may not be safe. Yeah,
I
Jasmine?
think for me as well is the assumption of left and right brain. And although, like the discs and the can't think of the other ones.
Myers-Briggs.
Yeah. Even though they're really great to get an understanding of who you are and where you fit in the workplace, taking that as gospel and identifying people as purely that, I don't think is very inclusive.
Kind of pigeonholing people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Nicole, you had a different answer. You said yes, it was inclusive.
Oh, look, I guess I absolutely take the point of tremendous arguments. Like I think when I heard that statement, it sounded like the person was, I don't even know, like I'm just, from my perspective, went straight to, it sounds like they enjoy this kind of conversation. Of course, if they weren't feeling, they enjoy these tremendous arguments, but they really feel that there's respect on both levels. So that's how I sort of took that, you know, they might be left or right brain. I totally get that as well. And as someone that's recently done the disc, it's been very, very interesting to see how some people really like to pigeonhole themselves as well in those spaces, where I personally think I've done twice in 6 months. And I think sometimes for me, still around the same kind of outcomes, but depending on how I was feeling on the day, how confident I was feeling. And so I think that pigeonholing can be quite interesting, I think.
And it's also, people can wear it as a handicap too. I actually worked with somebody who said, oh, I'm so left brain, I can't do that right brain stuff, or vice versa. So yeah, it's interesting. All right, let's have a look at the next one. My manager asks for more information when she does not have all the answers or is unaware of a certain topic. This removes the pressure for me to be knowledgeable about everything all the time, and encourages me to learn rather than put on pretense of being aware. Do you think that's inclusive or not inclusive? Yes or no? Yes, it's inclusive. No, it's not inclusive. Yeah. Yeah, Crystal's saying yes. Yeah, I think it is, obviously. They feel really safe, don't they, Sally, by the sounds of it, in that situation? My manager always invites us to share our views, but comes up with a list of counters on why it will not work without actively listening to it. I think he only wants opinions that are in keeping with his. No, everyone's like, no, that is not inclusive. No, we're all women, so I can say this. It's a he. When I came out of the closet to my manager, he advised me to not talk about it to anyone else on the team. To them, I am still straight. Yeah, that's not inclusive, especially in a world where we have to embrace diversity. Okay, so how are we going for time? So just for a little bit, what I want to explore with you now, I'm really interested to hear this because we all work in different environments. There's a list of things on page 15. And I want you to share with me what you think is okay, or Elle said, and it's illegal. Hallelujah. Thank you, Elle. Good point. Talking about the person having to stay in the closet. When we're talking about what is acceptable, now this is a really interesting one when I do the workplace conflicts, and there's a lot of stuff that people talk about as common sense. Common sense is a dangerous phrase. It's just common sense. I can give you some articles and share some articles where common sense is not so common, right? And it's where people disagree about things that are common sense. So, first question I want to ask you, what's acceptable? This is a really interesting one because in the territory, we operate on territory time. I'd be really interested to see what people say anywhere else. What, in terms of punctuality, what do you think is okay, not okay? If someone is a little bit late to work, or it takes extended breaks, if people walk out together and go to the coffee shop to get a coffee and they take a long time, what sort of things do you think are okay and not okay in terms of punctuality?
I was going to say, it depends on if you're meeting with other people. So if you're in a meeting, you don't want, I think you should be punching on time if other people are going to be there at the same time, rather just people coming in and out whenever.
Crystal hates lateness. Yeah, that's a good point, Sally. Really, really good point. Jasmine says the one-offs, emergencies, care of minors, pre-discussed events. Yeah, that's okay. So these are the sort of things that people will get into arguments about. Do you know what's really interesting in the territory? We talk about territory time. And I find this really interesting when I do training interstate, when I do training in Melbourne. In the territory, if the training starts at 9 o'clock, that's what time you walk in through the door. I do performances at Totem Theatre. The show starts at 7. That's what time people rock up. Like, we're supposed to be lifting the curtain at 7, but that's very territory culture. When I delivered some training in Melbourne 2 years ago, I was out of touch with work, doing stuff in the city. And I rock up, I'm there, and everyone's ready to do the training at 1:45. Like, we're starting at 9, not rocking up at 9. So I know in the territory when I do training that we won't actually get started until about 1:15 if it says 9 o'clock. So yeah, that's a cultural thing, right? And it can be acceptable in some places, not acceptable in others.
I think
What were you going to say, Nicole?
I have this real thing with and it's about lateness, but like me, like opening an office, like the office opens at 8:30, then you need some people there at 8:30. And I think for me, sometimes it's probably more with the culture within businesses that are like, well, that's not my job, or if it's part of everyone's, but the one person usually does it, and then everyone's just like, I'm not going to worry about it. And to me, that becomes a little bit disrespectful. Not so much in my office now, but I've seen that happen quite a bit in other jobs that I've worked in as well.
Yes.
That impacts the others, like someone else brought up as well. Obviously, again, I certainly was one of those mothers that had to drop their kid off to preschool for a year. That the actual preschool didn't open until 8:30, so everyone knew you'd be there at 20 to 9, but that was that was for a year, and that was.
I think someone said that in that, as long as you pre-discuss that.
Yeah.
And I like Jasmine said we had a friend who was always late, and we said, is it real time or mic time? It's like, yeah, it's like the territory time. Yeah, and I think if you have those discussions with people beforehand, then it's okay. And this is what I want you to think about when we started the conversation at the beginning. It's about those boundaries. Language is a really interesting one. What do you think about swearing? Is that professional, unprofessional? I said SHIT during this training. Do you find that unprofessional? Sally saying no. What do you think? What does anyone want to, you can pop in the chat. Now, this is a really interesting one because, like I said, you're all rural, regional women. We get dirty, we get dusty, and we get shit done, right? So I like to use that language because it's relatable for people. And I had to, at one time in my business, really do a lot of consultation about some of my taglines, which is Elle said situational, spot on. It is really, really situational. And some work environments will tolerate it and some won't. You know, some environments can tolerate it. For me, I've chosen to use that S word because it's the market I want to relate to and they will use it. And so I have a tagline for my business, which is stress to strength, chaos to calm, shit to shine. And it's down to earth and it's real. So that's why I will use that language. But I had to play with that and some people don't like it, but they're not my market.
It's,
In the
it's
word, what are you going to say, Nicole?
no, so I'm asking you to repeat that. Oh, and I was going to say it's really interesting. That yeah, again, I think I've certainly curved. Not that I did it a lot, but I'm certainly even a bit more, more mindful, even if I'm feeling comfortable. But it's funny, if anyone knows NT politics, we've had some politicians that swear like an absolute trooper. Not saying good or bad thing, that whatever, but wow. So it's been interesting. Like it's
And it's Crystal
that's
said,
even sorry, Barbara and I have had that conversation. Like it's just like wow, that's a lot of swear words in a meeting with interesting.
yes. And look, I've actually been in workshops where people have got highly, like Crystal has said, if I'm doing a workshop or coaching session, I'm swearing I'm just myself. Me too. And I've worked with coaches that are like that as well. But I actually had, I recommended a coach to a colleague one time and she really didn't like them because they swore too much. But it's just, they're probably not a good fit. Crystal, you and I probably want to work with people that will have a little spicy language. But like Nicole said, we've been in meetings where people are letting F-bombs go in business situations going, whoa, that's a bit over the top. Jasmine, what did you want me to repeat? Was it my taglines? Is that what you wanted me to repeat? So my taglines that I have are from stress to strength, chaos to calm, and shit to shine. And it was the shit to shine that some people, like Dr. Judy Hinwood, my mentor, said, I don't like it. I don't, because she's very sophisticated and mature lady. And she said, I don't like that. But I've had to say, well, some audiences I'll use that, but it is like what Elle said, it's choose your audience. It's situational. Elle said, in changing my business audience to a young audience, previously adult market, I have to temper my language. What do you mean, Els, by temper? I know you're typing, so tell me what you mean by temper. I interpret that
Okay.
as
Turn it on. Hopefully there won't be too much feedback. And I can hear myself, so
we can hear you okay.
yeah, good. I was doing a lot of business coaching, so I had that business audience, and I was very much myself. And the women who were, wasn't just women, the people who were drawn to me were down to earth. And if the F-bomb flew out, it really didn't matter. And often that was quite a considerable part of the conversation. That it has become a part of my natural work. I took a break from business and I'm just I spent last year writing, just getting back into the promotion of it. So I'm about to publish a number of children's books, and they'll be presented to a school-based audience, and I will have to be on guard to
Right, now I get what you're saying.
not,
Really young audience, yeah.
yes, to not be myself and be very
Yes.
professional. Definitely situational.
And now I get it. Um, what do you think? Maya said, when set in the right context and to the right audience, to me, it can actually show passion and emphasis on to convey strong emotions, and it shows authenticity. I agree with you, Maya. Like sometimes when you have a little bit of swearing, it can put people at ease, and it's kind of using that passion. And so that's, like I said, with the shit to shine. There was some of my clients that said, please don't take that away because it so resonates with how you make us feel when we work with you. Because we can say, I feel like shit. Everything's gone to shit. That's the language that we use, right? And I don't think it's as nasty as it used to be. What about clothes? I can be a bit conservative sometimes. Like sometimes I see a bit of flesh, a bit of boob, short skirts. What do you all think about clothes? What do you think is professional or not professional? Can people wear thongs to a business meeting? What's the no to? Thongs. Only in the territory, Crystal. I was waiting for that.
You're not there. No. Oh.
So in the territory, because it's so hot, when we go to business functions, they have territory formal as a dress code. So it's basically saying to the men, you don't have to wear a tie. Sally said, I would love that. You know, when I lived in Melbourne and Brisbane and was working, it was kind of expected that women would wear a heel shoe to demonstrate their authority, their power. It's crazy, isn't it? And their positioning. But if you wore high heels in the territory, although Nicole does, but a lot of women don't. It's like, oh, well, there's a city chick. She's not from the bush. Els said Central Queensland thongs is pretty normal too. Yeah, I think in our rural and regional communities, it's pretty normal, right? What were you going to say, Nicole?
Oh, look, yeah, I don't know about thongs. Says me who's got no shoes on right now, but anyway, and I'm in my office, which is probably another thing. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more. I think there's got to be a certain sort of level if you're going into an office. But you need to be able to, like, I don't believe in uniforms, so that's me personally. So I like to actually have things that sort of represent who I am. So thongs and jeans to go to a business meeting, I'm not convinced about for me and the world that I work in. But I absolutely, again, I'm not big into uniforms because I actually think you should be able to express, I like to be able to wear the clothes or your colours or whatever you want to wear as well. So that would be
Sally said something similar. I don't feel I can surely be myself wearing clothes that are not aligned with me.
Yeah. They have to choice about thongs.
I'm just going to move on through a few of these, but some other things. These are some things that are interesting, aren't they? We come up with different ideas, and a lot of this comes up to the kind of place you work in. Is it acceptable to over socialize? This can be a huge one in mediations. Personal space. I've done mediations where people are taking up too much space of somebody else. The desks are messy and people get into arguments about it. Using email is a really interesting one, whether or not it's appropriate to use your work email for personal things or sending things from a work email. These are the things that come up. Borrowing equipment, whether or not this is more if you're an employee and you're having to lead people, how vehicles get used. This is a really interesting one. I've had a lot of clients where this has come up a lot lately, where people are being too open, sharing too much, and making other people feel uncomfortable. Giving away too much information that is making people feel that I don't need to know that. Borrowing equipment only if it's returned. Yeah, Elle said boundaries. Yeah. Too much information. Yeah, totally. But there's also needs to be, and it's really interesting about what things that you share. So, for example, your now it breaches the law, is to remember that. But in terms of sexual activity, if you picked up on the weekend or you didn't, or knowing about what somebody's doing, not appropriate in the workplace. So you've got to be careful if you become really familiar with people. You should not be having those conversations in a professional environment. Political views. Now, for someone like Nicole, that could be with the chamber and that alignment with politics, that could be really, really dangerous for her to share what her political alignment is. Some people get really offended if you share your political views or if you have a strong political view. Saw that a lot with COVID, where people were completely aligned, and then that whole thing around the vaccinations and conflicts occurred. So these are some things to think about that we don't often communicate, but we assume are common sense. And this list, these are things that you need to be clear on in terms of where you sit around this and what you feel comfortable with. And if something makes you feel uncomfortable, what you need to think about is, can I be embracing of that other person and accept them, or is this a game changer? Like the swearing, like the clothes, any of those things. Maybe it's their smell. They got bad breath and body odor. Can you work with someone like that or not? Do you tolerate that or not? So some things, food for thought there, some things, and I want you to start to think about that in terms of, again, in the workbook, it's an activity that you can work through. Look, just in finishing up, some things to think about, just a few things I want to go through. This is a great book. It's well over 100 years old now. It's being rewritten in a more modern way. If you read the original, it's very old school language, but there's some absolute gems in this book and is often cited in leadership training and development. When I first started doing leadership training, they used to talk about this book and I go, I'm not going to read a book written by a man 100 years ago. But it's a real game changer. Some really simple philosophies about human nature and how to build rapport with people. So that could be, there's so many books, but that's a really good one to read around leadership. This is one of my favorite philosophies around leadership that I first learned, and I tried very much to live by this always. It is a simple philosophy, and there's in the workbook you can write any notes if you want to. But the absorb the pain, good leaders do this really well, that they take the pain for their team. They take the complaints, or they let people offload, but they don't pass that pain on to anybody else. They take the pain. Share the joy is that you celebrate with everybody. You share the spoils, you share the wins. Sorry, I'm recovering from bronchitis, so I got a bit of a tickly throat. So for me, when I first started on my leadership journey, I was doing a role for an entrepreneur where I'd go out and do speaking gigs all the time or go to conferences. I was always getting gifts as a speaker, a bottle of wine or some soaps, or go to a conference, get a bag full of goodies. What I made sure that I did was when I came back from those events, I never held them. I gave them to my team. So I'd share that joy to build trust and respect. And deflect the glory is a pretty obvious one, isn't it? It's where you go, it wasn't me, it was my team. I'm not going to take all the credit for this. It was my team that did that. It's a really simple philosophy, right? To remember. It's a beautiful one. Really, really, but it will hold you in good stead, that one. There's going to be a little bit of homework that's going to come up tomorrow in the portal. And it is a TED Talk from a guy called Barry Posner. And it's basically how to build trust and rapport and respect with your peers. Really, really good one. So in your own time, you can watch that. This is a quote from that TED Talk. People won't believe the message if they don't believe in the messenger. And that comes back to that authenticity and big thing of what you do, Crystal, the work that you do. People aren't going to buy into the entrepreneur if they don't believe the story, if they're not authentic. What I want you to do now, though, and there is there's going to be some questions that I'm going to ask the group in the next couple of weeks, just to ask you to reflect on what we've covered today and to start the conversation like we've had today in the group and sharing that knowledge. To conclude today, what I want you to do is in the chat, and I'm going to keep you accountable to this. I'm going to set some action steps for you in the portal based on what you write. I want you to put into the chat one thing based on what we've done today, one thing you're going to start doing, one thing you might stop doing, something you might change and do a little bit differently. Something that you are going to continue doing. You can say, yeah, that's taught me that I'm doing the right thing. So in the chat, I want you all to write. So Lou, I want you to write something you're going to start doing. Not just the word start. What are you going to start doing? Or maybe you started to type it and you pressed enter. Something you're going to start, something you're going to stop. Once you start deflecting the glory, Lou, you do that really well anyway. I think that's what you're going to continue doing. You're very good at that. Once you start writing, and I'll read these out for people that are watching the recording. Anyone watching the recording, I know there's a lot of you. I want you to write this in the group portal about the things you're going to start, stop, change, and continue. And for everything that you will write, everyone, I'm going to keep you accountable to it. So can you write it in the chat for me? Because I really want to keep you to it. While you're doing that, just a reminder, I'll send you out another calendar invite. We'll do this because I'm trying to get this stuff out quickly for this grant application I'm applying for. We got another workshop next Saturday around negotiation. If you can come, I'd be so grateful. After that, they'll be during the week. If you can't come because of work and commitments, I totally understand. They'll be recorded. Come on, type the stuff in the chat. Well done, Nicole. Start putting in boundaries as I start a new job. Yes. Great, Yvonne. You're going to start being conscious of the style of leadership you're employing. Crystal's going to start using other forms of leadership strategies. Awesome.
So start, change, and stop. Is that what it is?
Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yeah. So start, stop, change.
Continue. I'd love for you to put something for each one. Stop taking on board the negative behaviors of others. Yes, Lou, I like that one. Maybe, Lou, you can start thinking like that pack model. Where are they sitting right now? What's their competency level? Good one. Maya's going to start prioritizing better boundaries and stress management. Start believing in my limitless potential. Yeah. So I'll be sending you out also a link to where you can book an appointment with me for your one-on-one. So there's quite a few diagnostic things to do. It'll take about 7 or 8 sessions to go through all of them. Lou's going to change. It won't be easy, but trying not to take on so much. Just rolled then. This was highlighted in my recent PDR, professional development review. I'm guessing that's what that means. Stop accepting poor behavior. Nice, Nicole. Lou's going to continue being an angel of joy. Yeah, don't ever stop doing that, Lou. Sally said she's going to start adapting her leadership, stop being so hard on myself, change my boundaries, and continue consulting with others. Nice, Sally. That's on point. Maya's going to start delegating. Awesome. Jasmine L, haven't got anything from you yet, have I? You going to write some? Elle looks like she's writing. In a couple of weeks, as I said, there'll be a group session where we can talk about this. Did you start those things? Did you stop them? I'm going to ask you how you went with some of this stuff. Remember, I'm going to try and keep you accountable. Elle said, I'm really struggling with this task due to the transitional nature of where I'm at right now. We'll reflect on it later. Okay, Elle, that's good. If anything, maybe you can start to raise your awareness around how you are with other people around you. Making decisions and doing things. Nicole's going to change, she's going to be very mindful and think about leadership styles, not necessarily just doing it. Great. Continue to be authentic. I like that. Jasmine's going to start applying boundaries around my workload. Love that. Stop allowing negativity. Change the way I approach my work days. Nice, Jasmine. They're really good. Chitter chatter. Crystal said, change my content strategy, continue deep work strategy. Oh, Crystal, what are you going to change about your content strategy?
Well, I just recently did my audit. So I've just kind of changed my pillars and just updated them a little bit because I've done a bit of a shift in my services. So yeah, just kind of updating those. I'm going to now, I've expanded to 2 new platforms. So just trying to work out a really great way to repurpose everything. And then increasing the amount that I'm posting. So wish me luck.
Well, talk to me if there's anything I can help you with. I'll chat to you about some tools that I've discovered you might like.
Awesome. Yeah. That'd be cool.
Jasmine said, I'm going to continue being my empathetic self. And I get what you're saying, Elle, that you're pretty solitary at the moment. That's good. Maybe you can think about you can think about the style you want to moving forward. Lou, it's nice to meet everyone. Elle said I only have to argue with the other voices in my head. All right. I'm going to leave that there with you. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating today and helping me to pilot this. Like I said, I'll have something next Saturday, but I've all sent you a Word document, which has got the schedule. It's also in the portal. But I really would love for you to engage in that portal and start sharing your experiences, how you went committing to some of these things, maybe some things you observed, maybe a story. Maybe you stuffed up. You tried something and it backfired. It didn't work. If you can share those experiences and stories, I'm going to be sharing more and more resources with you in that portal. Like I said, we had such a lovely time sharing today. Want to keep that energy going in between the sessions. We will, in a couple of weeks, on a weekday, have a group facilitated mastermind, which is really just conversational. It's about how you're going, what have you learned, what are some experiences, how can I help you apply some of this knowledge. Sally, I'm so glad to hear that you're feeling better about yourself. That's the whole intent. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely wanted you to feel stronger and courageous and confident. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. That's lovely. Thank you all so much for contributing. Any questions, you can send them to me privately or you can do it in the forum. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you all.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks.
I'll tweet you all.
Bye.
Sent you a message, Barbara.
On my phone or in Zoom?
Fine.
Okay. Thanks, Mime. Gorgeous thing.
That's good. All right, I'll talk to you later. See you. Bye.
All right, see you, Nicole.
Bye.
Sorry.
Bye. No.
Not Nicole. Bye, all.